Okay, so on this first question where they want us to find the quadrants that satisfied the given conditions, first thing I want to review is all suckers take calculus. So that means all the trig identities are positive here. Then in our second quadrant here, it's going to be sine and then the reciprocal identity, the cosecant. Okay, and then our third quadrant will be tangent and cotangent. And then the fourth quadrant will be cosine and secant are positive in the fourth quadrant. Okay. And if you go back and watch some of the videos, you'll get some explanations of why that is. I mean, it's a nice little trick, but really, if you kind of think about it and understand that we're talking about the ratios of a triangle sides, it will make sense. So the first one they give us is that the secant has to be less than zero. Basically, it means secant needs to be negative. Well, that would be equivalent to saying that cosine needs to be negative, needs to be less than zero. So cosine is positive in quadrants 1 and 4. So it can't be either quadrant 1 or 4. So I'm going to go ahead and mark those out. So now we've narrowed it down to either quadrant 2 or 3. And it says cotangent has to be positive. Well, that's the same thing as saying tangent needs to be positive, greater than zero. And so tangent is positive in quadrant 3. So it's going to have to end up being quadrant 3 right there. Okay? And so I would take some time and go back and kind of review this just to make sure you have your signs down for the different trig identities, because this will come up time and time again. Okay, so this next one says find sine given that cosine is 4/5 and that we're in quadrant number 4. So the best thing to do is draw a picture for what we're doing. And so cosine is it's positive 4 over 5. And so if you remember, cosine of an angle is x over r. So I'm just going to give like a little rough sketch of this. It's not going to be drawn to scale, okay? So this is my x value, so that means x is 4, and then r is the hypotenuse, so that's going to be 5. And so what you need to do is you need to figure out the y value right here. And so you're going to have to do Pythagorean theorem. So 4 squared plus y squared equals 5 squared. And so you're going to need to go ahead and do that and solve for y. Your answer will be negative, okay? Because you can see right here, if you're looking at it in x and y coordinate, this has to be negative right here. So anyways, that's what you need to do. Figure out Pythagorean theorem, and then sine of theta is y over r, and so you can figure it out after that. So I'll leave that up to you. So really, all that's left for you to do is solve for y. All right, let's look at your last one. So right here it says find the 5 remaining trig values for angle theta given that the secant is equal to -4 and that our angle is in quadrant 2. Pretty much the same question as the last question we just did, except that obviously they're asking you for 5 of them instead of just one of them. So the easiest one to find would be the cosine. So the cosine would just be the reciprocal of that, which would be -1/4. So the reciprocal of secant is cosine, and so you just flip it. Then from here, once again, I would kind of draw a picture of this. And once again, it's probably not going to be quite to scale, but you just give yourself a little rough sketch right here. So my x value is -1. I don't know the y value, and then I know the hypotenuse is 4, because remember, cosine is x over r. And just takes time to memorize all this stuff. But the best thing to do is have those charts in front of you when you're working on this stuff. Okay. All right. So then from here, once again, you're going to have to do Pythagorean theorem. So you're going to have to do x squared, which should be -1 squared, plus y squared equals 4 squared. And so you need to go ahead and solve that. This time y will be positive because you can see y is positive right here. If you look at the y-axis, it goes up. x is negative because I have to go backwards from the origin for my x value. So I'm going to go ahead and leave the rest to you, but basically, once you figure out what y is, I mean, sine of theta is just going to be the y value over r, and then the cosecant would just be the reverse of that r over y, and then tangent of theta is going to be y over x, and then the cotangent of theta is going to be x over y. So just go ahead, you want to figure those out, and then once you figure out y, I mean, it's pretty simple. You're just going to fill in the numbers. So I hope that helps.